Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for giving me your time. I'm Brandon Daniels. I'm the CEO of Exiger. Exiger is a supply chain visibility, orchestration, and risk management platform. We help the world's largest companies to deal with a variety of issues, whether it's risks related to modern slavery, or it's helping them to manage and reduce costs through multi-tier embedded spend programs, or it's reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We're helping companies to solve their biggest challenges. And so we are driven by one core mission, and that's to make the world a safer and more transparent place to succeed. That mission is informed partly by our background. Our background has been helping companies to manage operational issues for decades. And it's also been helping them to manage some of the most critical risk issues of our time. In fact, that's my background as well. I've had two parts of my career. The first part of my career is helping companies, helping to grow companies through operational success. And then the second part of my career is dealing with some of the largest global crises in the last 20 years. I've been on everything from the White House COVID-19 task force to helping some of the largest global banks deal with and grapple with the 2008 financial collapse. And with that experience, I've been able to take away one thing. I've seen situations in which business, security, data all can collide, and I've seen where they can all mesh together. And so, as an organization, our mission is betting that you have the power, you have the capacity to change the world. That when given the right data, insights, and capabilities, you will be able to use the transparency that we are delivering to make change in your world, to make change in your organization, to 10x your organization. And so the question becomes, can we take and harness this challenge? Can we make a difference?
Uncertainty is the only certainty in business, and our ability to change will define our survival. We are in the middle of increasingly uncertain times. Global upheaval broadcast to the palm of your hand. And the velocity of mission-critical decision-making is coming at us at unprecedented rates. Technology advancement that once took 30 to 40 years to develop into everyday knowledge
Just flick the switch on the modem.
is now being compressed into a matter of months. And what's at stake? Not only the future of the business world, but the world itself. We must meet this new wave of challenges in our everyday lives, at the office, the kitchen table, even airport lounges, regaining perhaps our most precious commodity, trust. At a time of skepticism, the process and data necessary must be developed at pace and at scale. Can the power of AI empower us? Revolutionizing decision-making, bridging the skills gap, cutting unnecessary steps, maintaining agility. The cost of not doing so is far too high. But we have the ability. We all do. We just have to stay out in front, adapting to the pace of change.
So that's the question. Can we make a difference? Can us supply chain and procurement fanatics make a difference in this world? And my answer is an emphatic yes. It's a yes for three reasons. One, the first thing is our organizations no longer stop at our doorstep anymore. I was speaking with one of our automotive customers, and they mentioned to me this unbelievable stat that over 90% of the cost of building an automobile is from parts manufactured outside of their organization. At first, that struck me as astounding. But then I thought about my own company, my company which I run. And I thought, okay, so we build our own software, but we don't build our own servers, we use the cloud. We don't build our own multi-factor authentication software, we use a third party. And those companies use companies to build their components, to build their software, whether open source or proprietary. And I realized that the world is outsourced. And what that means is that you are now the bedrock of your company's ability to survive and thrive in this market. Navigating these risks is down to the procurement and supply chain professionals who now have a responsibility for managing these risks. And so with that responsibility, I believe you will be able to take the next step and rise to the challenge to help your companies, your organizations, not only meet the challenge of risk, meet the challenge of an outsourced world, but also you'll be able to help them change the organization through optimized spend, through optimized procurement, through optimized supply chains to turn that risk into reward. So what is it that we're dealing with, considering that the world is outsourced? First, we have extensive operational footprints and supply chains. That makes it hard for us to monitor the risks that exist in our environment. That makes it difficult to monitor the global regulation changes that are occurring right now. It makes it hard for us to monitor which of our operations, when we get past the first tier, are potentially in peril when we're dealing with global crises like we are right now in the United States with Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton and the longshoreman strike. The second thing is, today we have the ability to see into our own operations. We demand that ability. We have WMS systems, we have PLM systems, we have procurement systems, ERPs that allow us to have the touch and feel of our organization, allow us to get the reporting we need to make decisions. But we don't own these suppliers. We don't own these vendors. We don't actually have that data. And so with this lack of control also comes fragmented technology and fragmented data when we break out of our first tier of our supply chain. And then also we're dealing with a global footprint that makes it difficult to see process adoption, technology adoption. These are the things that, can stop us from expanding our reach and creating not only a supplier ecosystem that sets us up for success, but also an internal process of utilizing that supplier ecosystem that sets us up for success. And so I think we're overwhelmed. And I think all of us in the procurement and supply chain community, when we look at the last few years, I think all of us have had moments where we say, we may not have the data, we may not have the resources, we may not have the skill sets internally to manage this scale of risk. But I think you do. That's what I'm betting on. I've purchased 5 procurement and supply chain technology companies in the last 2 years because I'm betting that with the right tool sets and the right data, you are going to get actionable insights that are going to change your organization. The second thing that makes me think that you have the power to make a difference for your organization is that the regulations are going to push visibility into your supply chains. They're going to push you to orchestrate your supply chains in a way that has never been seen before. We have a deluge of risks that we're facing, and they're interconnected risks that create vast, unpredictable risk scenarios. These decisions on a single supplier are a cascade, they're a waterfall of multiple risk areas that we have to analyze. And they sit across a large domain set. They sit across a large spectrum of expertise that we need to leverage and harness in order to make these decisions effectively. Let's zoom in on one risk for a second. Just financial volatility in our suppliers. The number of corporate bankruptcies in the US rose by 40% in 2023, and it's continuing to escalate. Over the past 3 years, bankruptcy rates have steadily risen in the EU, while new companies coming to market has actually stayed stagnant. And then finally, almost twice as many manufacturing companies declared bankruptcy in the first half of 2023 than the entirety of 2022, and 24 is getting worse. What's happening is this is creating fragility in our environment, fragility that is hard to manage. The second thing that's a correlated risk is we're now having to manage environmental crime and modern slavery risk inside of our supply chains. And that's putting additional enforcement pressure, compliance pressure on our underlying suppliers. So when you compound financial health with the added cost of compliance, we are in a perilous position. Procurement folks are doing what they do best. They are creating value. They're managing cost in their suppliers. They're driving schedule. They're ensuring performance. But now they're on a perilous tightrope of risk management. And so this continues to scale. It's a systemic issue. We've all seen these supply chain disruptions in the last 5 years. And we're going to continue to see them. It's estimated that $25 trillion of net losses will be had on global supply chains by mid-century due to climate change. That's $25 trillion of net losses in the next 20 years. And it's only getting worse. And so the way that I think about it, procurement and supply chain folks have an incredible skill set. You are driving an incredible amount of value for your organization. But you're like figure skaters skating without ice. You're hitting the hard ground. You're doing your routines, you're doing fantastic work, but you have to own all of that risk around a supplier. And so how do I think we actually solve these challenges, which was the third and most important point, almost like the white knight riding in at dawn as the battle looks like it's going to be lost. AI provides us a glimmer of hope. I think that AI can do 4 things for us. First, it can create visibility into our multi-tier ecosystem to open up opportunity. And this is what we're investing with our customers in, using open source data and artificial intelligence to actually trace those supply chains cost effectively. We can simplify our view of the supplier on a multi-tier basis. We can bridge the gap between the skills that we have today and the skills that we need in the future. And then And a very simple nuance to that, if we train our models on a domain-specific basis, if we give it the right data, we are able to see Gen AI basically help us to determine the impact of risk, which is not core domain to supply chain and procurement when it comes to things like cybersecurity. And finally, we can use AI to drive automation and workflow, cutting unnecessary steps, allowing us to document and to assess the risks that we have in front of us, but also to fill out those templates that today take up so much of our time and apply our skills where we're going to make the biggest difference. And so, what we're on the precipice of doing is finding that opportunity.
This is a smartphone ready for market. Looks simple enough, right? Not really. 80 to 90% of this finished product came from sources outside their doorstep. And behind any one of these outsourced materials, there could be unforeseen dangers, if not detected early. To know what's inside a decision, you need the right vision. Take the smartphone, for example. It's made up of lots of pieces as well, like this capacitor. Where did it really come from? Upon closer inspection, a mine in the Congo, where child labor laws are abused, where warlords have people living in fear, where the profits from mining fund more armed conflicts. And despite widespread regulations, it's nearly impossible to know where these minerals are coming from. That is, unless you have the tools to see what's inside. Tools that not only give you visibility, but inform you when you need to pay attention. Every small buying decision today can have a massive impact. Financial health, operational risks, reputational risks, ESG concerns, cybersecurity threats. And procurement, having once been in the background, is now on the front lines of detection.
This is a massive effort.
With an opportunity to create value and reduce risk, and show their organizations we can achieve cost savings while doing something life-saving. This is how we achieve 10x. Reduce the negative, amplify the positive.
So one of the things that we have to think about is how do we start to solve these problems? And the first thing is to think about supply chain risk management and visibility as a value driver instead of a cost driver. You know, most companies, as they're thinking about implementing supply chain risk management capabilities, are thinking about just the ability to comply with the regulations that are confronting us today. But the fact is that we can use this capability to use that visibility to unify our systems, to create one consistent, unified digital thread. The first thing is building a schema, a data schema, that simplifies our organizations. You know, most of us think about these sort of data warehousing projects as major projects that can create a huge amount of operational friction. What I'm talking about is simplifying the world so that we're bringing together the data points that matter, our suppliers, our SKUs, the part numbers, so that we can start to see downstream into our digital thread and identify where we have a facility location at a supplier that potentially is in one of the disaster zones. But it's being able to simplify that data schema that's so critical. And it's the first jumping off point. The second part is that digital thread reaches outside of our organization. And when it reaches outside of our organization, it creates an opportunity for us to start to utilize artificial intelligence and supplier collaboration, not just for the purposes of getting visibility, but for the ability to actually manage risk. And so I think that the second point is, outside of the digital thread, the second point is being able to prioritize and add criticality to our thinking. So being able to focus on the things that are most critical in our supply chain, the parts, the suppliers that matter to us, not just a sort of uniform paintbrush. What it's going to do is it's going to allow us to break down those silos between our organizations. And then finally, being able to take that the vulnerabilities that our vendors are subject to, the criticality of our parts, the threats that we're facing, and bundle that up into risk. It means that we are then able to mirror that with cost viability and turn risk into reward. And so what we're able to do is extract out of our supply chains the visibility we need to start to see the underlying areas where we can consolidate spend, consolidate supply, and actually achieve change.
To improve is to change. To be perfect is to change often. The advent of the personal computer has been compared to the introduction of the bicycle. Suddenly, with new efficiencies, we could move at a multiple rate. The advent of AI has been compared to the introduction of the steam engine, and it too will propel us forward at rates we have never experienced before, creating a new industrial revolution. But really, it means nothing unless we use this new potential, amplifying our collective buying power with the power of AI, for our good and the greater good. Together, we can drive efficiency and change, creating more equitable wages, better global health, and stronger global economies, while ensuring our success. Together, we can protect ourselves and the world we inhabit. With the power of AI, we can create more informed buying decisions, giving everyone the ability to procure a more ethical, practical, and sustainable world. Together, we can save the day.
And so this is the call to action. How can we 10x our procurement and 100x our organizations? First is digital collaboration driven by data. Don't get disillusioned by the fact that there are hallucinations in AI today. When we experiment and we continuously improve the data that's in those systems, we can see incredible results. It's utilizing that AI to prioritize our capabilities, to prioritize our parts, to prioritize our products that we need to actually manage, to focus on how we can then use that cost savings to rehabilitate those supply chains. If we can save 10% on materials, we can reinvest 2% in ethical, sustainable supply chains. And finally, we're able to turn risk into reward. We don't have to save the entire world today, but let's together save the day. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time this morning.